Worker exploitation is rampant in the global fashion industry, according to countless investigations, studies and reports. So why haven't fashion brands cleaned up their acts? Even if brands want to be part of the solution, as they are frequently asked to be, they are hindered by the current legal system. The problem is if brands are to eradicate labor exploitation, they must take more control of their supply chains. But if they take more control over their supply chains, they open themselves up to the risk of tremendous legal liability. To effect real change in the global fashion industry, the countries where brands are headquartered need to reconsider their legal policies. The existing liability rules need to be amended to incentivize the brands' direct involvement in labor issues in their chains. Read more: global supply chains link us all to shame of child and forced labor. A recent report from Oxfam found that garment workers earn as little as 2% of the price of clothing sold in Australia, a $27 billion industry. Earlier this month, shoppers at a Zara store in Istanbul allegedly found messages in the clothing that garment workers had hidden in protest of unfair wages. The messages read, "I made this item you were going to buy, but I didn't get paid for it." The Raw Plaza tragedy saw more than 1,000 people killed when a garment factory in Bangladesh collapsed. This occurred more than 4 years ago. These are just a few examples from a long list of horrors. But still the problem has not been fixed. Global value chains over the past few decades, the production process for garments, and other things, has evolved and become very complicated. These global value chains include all the activities that are necessary to a product's life cycle: designing, making, selling, and sometimes even recycling. When it comes to the relationship between these vast networks of suppliers and the law, there is a connection between responsibility and liability. Generally, a brand is only legally responsible for the actions of suppliers if the brand directly controls that supplier. In a global value chain, most suppliers are typically outside of the brand's direct control. Like many activist organizations, Oxfam places the onus on Australian fashion brands to improve the labor practices of their subsidiaries and suppliers in developing countries. For instance, Oxfam calls for brands to implement a living wage, a wage that is sufficient for workers to meet their basic needs. Their report estimates that enforcing a living wage will only increase the final product price by 1%. This, they suggest, could be absorbed by the chain in order to keep prices from rising. Read more: explainer, what exactly is a living wage? The key is this: to ensure individual garment workers receive a living wage, brands would need to exert additional oversight and coordination of their suppliers and subsidiaries. In other words, brands would have to take stronger control not only of their suppliers but also of their suppliers' suppliers, and their suppliers' suppliers' suppliers, and so on. This is known as chain integration.